Hi guys, economics here again. So I'm going to now consider the relationship between the marginal revenue curve for the monopolist and total revenue for the monopolist. And this follows on from the previous video, which was all to do with the monopoly price, output and efficiencies. So, marginal revenue, as we've explained previously, the marginal revenue is the change in the total revenue from selling an additional unit of output. When the marginal revenue is positive, i.e. above zero, so on our diagram here, all these points from here down to this point 0 on the x-axis, when the marginal revenue is above zero, it means that as you sell more and more units, you're adding more and more in terms of incremental values to the total revenue. Now, the value of those incremental values will be getting smaller, but they're still positive, and so overall total revenue will be rising. And consequently, we can take a dashed line down here and we can say from the origin here, starting at zero level of output, as long as MR is positive, then total revenue must be rising. And so we can put on a rising total revenue curve up to this point. When we get to this point, where marginal revenue is intersecting the x-axis at 0, that clearly means, for instance, I don't know, you might be on level, Q might be at output level, let's say 10, and the total revenue at that point is, let's say, £100. Well, when MR is 0, so that means that you sell one additional product, because remember that's the definition of marginal revenue, the change in total revenue from selling an additional product. So when you sell the 11th unit of output, your total revenue is still equal to 100. So the marginal revenue, which is the difference between that one, is 0. And so for a unit, you've got a sort of a flat lining there in terms of your total revenue, and then when marginal revenue becomes negative, that means that total revenue must be actually starting to fall. And so when we get to output 12, so we now sell 12 units, and maybe our total revenue might actually only this time be £98. And so marginal revenue is falling. And so we can draw on a total revenue curve which is also then starting to fall. So that is the relationship between the marginal revenue and the total revenue for the monopolist. And so if you are in the business of producing output in a monopoly market, then strictly speaking it would probably not be in your best interests to have a level of output which is going beyond this point here. Because when it goes beyond that point, it means that your total revenues are falling. Now, of course, you will say to me, well, that depends on the objectives of the monopolist, and I absolutely agree with that. But in most instances, it wouldn't be sensible to do that. And so, there's just another little thing here as well. When you draw your marginal cost curve, do make sure that your marginal cost curve is, well to the left here, so whenever you do your level of output, I haven't drawn this diagram with the curves flat enough, but when you do your level of output, MC equals MR, P mon there, and the level of output there, and so your level of output is nicely to the left of the 0 point of MR. Just makes your diagram, strictly speaking, much more accurate. Nobody's really going to penalise you for that in the exam, and the examiner certainly won't, but that's certainly something to nota bene, ladies and gentlemen, when you are in the exam. So that is the relationship between the marginal revenue of the monopolist and the total revenue of the monopolist.